I know you've heard everyone talking about it in PvP. Some players are calling it broken, while others are screaming, it needs to be buffed. But my question to you is, did you know the Lorely Splendor is an absolute beast of an exotic in PvE? If you didn't, then today's your lucky day, because we're going to do a short review and make a fun little build that slaps at everything from Gambit all the way up to Master Nightfalls as a solo player. Hello my fellow weirdos, how are you today? Before we get started, I have a few things to talk about, but I will leave a timestamp so you can skip ahead to the review and build if you'd like. First off, I want to apologize for not uploading a video over the past 2 weeks. Some of you are new here, so I figured this would be a good time to mention this again. I have to travel for work a lot, and most of it is scheduled, but occasionally I get called away last minute. I hate doing it because I feel terrible about not uploading a video, but currently, I have no choice in the matter, so again, I am truly sorry. I try my best to avoid it, but sometimes I just can't, at least for the time being. Secondly, and this is a big one, we hit 1,000 subscribers. To celebrate, Amanda Holiday is gonna let me snort some Cheeto dust off her butt cheeks later.
Yep. Let's talk.
No, but seriously, I can't thank all of you enough for the support and kind words. You have no idea how much this means to me, or how talking to all of you in the comments section brightens my day. It's such a big deal to me. With that being said, I have one more favor to ask of you. I always preach that this is a community-driven channel because I love working with all of you on build ideas. I would like to go one step further and get your input on charities for some of the ad revenue. Let me know in the comment section which charities you like so I can do some homework. I won't see any ad revenue for a very long time because we have to hit thresholds from my understanding, but I want to get a head start with the research about them so when the time comes we can give back as a community of gamers and say it's from all of you since you're the ones who made this possible. Okay, thank you for hearing me out. Now, let me put on my professional voice so we can get to this video. The Lorely Splendor is one of the 2 Titan exotics that came out with the launch of the Witch Queen, and just like the Hoarfrost Z, I think it suffers from being overshadowed by everything Void related, but I have a feeling when Solar 3.0 makes its way into the game, this exotic is going to turn some heads because it has a lot going on. The exotic perk is called Cauterizing Flame. Our sunspots now heal us, and when we have a charged class ability, taking critical damage creates a sunspot where we're standing. It also creates a sunspot wherever we drop our barricade, and in my opinion, this is probably the most important part of the exotic, and I will explain why in a moment. The sunspots it creates are 6 meters wide, last 20 seconds, and heals us consistently for 10 HP per second, as long as we're standing in the fire. The moment we step out, we lose the healing, and the sunspot will disappear within 5 seconds if we don't step back into it. Unfortunately, this exotic doesn't add any value to the recharge rate of our class ability. I feel like it was a missed opportunity, but with 9 resilience, we can still get a fully charged barricade right as the 20-second timer runs out. The 10 HP of healing is okay in lower difficulty content, but in something like a 1580 Nightfall, we can't start face tanking a bunch of damage and think everything is going to be just fine, especially after it activates from critical health. We will definitely die if we stand there, but that 10 HP burst when going critical is just enough to give us a little breathing room to get to safety. It almost acts like a very light version of Protective Light, as long as we have a charged class ability. But like I mentioned a few moments ago, I think the sunspots on barricade activation is the selling point of this exotic. This is due to us having access to 2 very special perks on the bottom tree Sunbreaker, called Sol Invictus and Sun Warrior. Sol Invictus restores our health on ability kills and leaves sunspots everywhere we get those kills. And Sun Warrior grants us a 20% weapon damage buff that's stackable with all amplification modifiers and global debuffs, along with recharging our grenades 180% faster and melees 320% faster, all while standing in a sunspot. And for anybody wondering, an amplification modifier is something like Font of Might or Power of Rasputin. But wait, there's more. Sun Warrior can also create another sunspot on every 4th minor or 2nd major enemy kill with a weapon while standing in these sunspots. This means we can now run from sunspot to sunspot, healing, popping barricades, and recharging our abilities, all while having a 20% damage buff to every weapon. I can't think of any other mod or ability that can give us a damage buff with this amount of uptime, and that's why I say Lorely Splendor is slept on in PvE when used for the barricade. This exotic leaves room for so many different builds, ranging from tons of healing and Tommy's matchbook to non-stop explosions in the sunshot. But for today, it's all about survivability, bonus weapon damage, champion stopping power, volatile rounds, and some good old-fashioned solar Titan cran sniffing fun. Whew, that was a lot. I wanted this to have a taste of the Void shenanigans and the ability to handle harder difficulty content on our own by going all in on the barricade. The mods are Reaping Wellmaker, Volatile Flow, Well of Tenacity, Well of Utility, and Bountiful Wells. But I know some of you don't have Bountiful Wells, so I'm going to cover some alternatives when we get to that part, and don't worry, I will leave a screenshot at the end to show where I slotted everything. The first two mods we want to focus on are Reaping Wellmaker and Well of Utility. These are the golden ticket for this build, because the whole thing is based on our class ability. Every time we drop a barricade, our next weapon kill, regardless of the element, drops a Void Well from Reaping Wellmaker, and when we pick that well up, we receive 10% class ability energy back from Well of Utility, so they both feed each other. The next two mods, Volatile Flow and Well of Tenacity, are for ad clearing and some extra protection. After picking up that same Void Well from Reaping Wellmaker, we now have volatile rounds to any Void weapon for 16 seconds because of Volatile Flow, and we all know how much fun volatile rounds are. We also get a 50% damage reduction for 6 seconds from Well of Tenacity. It's not a lot of time, but when we're consistently dropping barricades and creating Void Wells, it adds up. And depending on the activity or how comfortable you are without the damage reduction, we can replace Well of Tenacity with a second copy of Well of Utility. This gives us more class ability energy because the mod is stackable. Something else I should mention is that we also get another 5% to our lowest ability from just picking up any well, regardless of the element. That 5% paired with Well of Utility is why I recommend Bountiful Wells. If you're using it, the barricade recharge rate gets bumped up another 15% because we're now picking up 2 wells instead of 1. This paired with Tier 9 Resilience can bring our barricade to a 10-second cooldown as long as we're picking up Void Wells. This means more barricades for protection, more volatile rounds for ad clearing, more healing from Lorely Splendor, and a never-ending 20% damage buff from Sun Warrior. If you don't have Bountiful Wells, Seeking Wells and Elemental Time Dilation are great alternatives. Seeking Wells makes Elemental Wells track to us from anywhere within 20 meters, and Elemental Time Dilation extends the timer on Well of Tenacity. To further help our barricade recharge rate and survivability, some great minor mods to pair with this build are Perpetuation on the class item to reduce class ability cooldown when using a class ability, and Thermal Shock Plating to reduce incoming solar and arc damage. The final mod we're going to use is Inferno Whip. This is an artifact mod that stuns unstoppables with a charged solar melee. And it ties in because this build is mainly focused on us solo players, so we have to take into consideration all champion and elemental shield types. To help this along, we're going to use some very specific types of weapons. For the kinetic slot, I was using a scout rifle to pair with the anti-barrier mod, plus it gives us some range and higher difficulty content. But if you prefer, this can be swapped out with a bow instead because we do have a barrier mod for that as well. For the energy, I had to go with the funnel web because it not only works great with volatile rounds, we also have an overload mod for SMGs. It's void to go up against those shields, and it has some of the best ad clearing capabilities in the game right now, especially with volatile rounds. For the heavy, it was a toss-up. The problem was needing all 3 elements for shields. If you don't need an arc weapon, I would say run whatever you prefer. My go-to is the tractor cannon, which would also benefit from volatile rounds. But if you do need arc, some good options are 7th Seraph Saw, an arc linear fusion rifle, or the Hothead rocket launcher. Even the Thunderlord would work great. Like I was saying a little bit ago, this exotic opens up the door to some fantastic builds, and I've goofed around with so many already. But what really sells me on this exotic is the consistent damage buff and healing it provides. It just feels good. I was always behind cover, had a 20% damage buff to all weapons, which made even my kinetic feel like it was putting in work, and I never felt like I was getting myself into a situation I couldn't handle, even as a solo Master Nightfall player, all by just popping a barricade and collecting wells. A few tips that I found very helpful was dropping my barricade at an angle instead of directly at the enemies. This way I could stand behind the barricade and strafe without stepping out of the sunspot. Another helpful thing is, when using Inferno Whip to stun unstoppables, try baiting them to your barricade. This way we can stand behind it and punch the champion to proc Inferno Whip while still being in the safety of our healing. I know I've said this in the past, but the build is now a permanent resident on my Titan. I like the Lorely Splendor so much that I will find a way to keep this build going once we lose the artifact mods. Let me know if you've been using this exotic in PvE and how you run it. Also, don't forget to let me know what charities you're into, please. As always, be true to yourself, be good to one another, and have a fantastic day. Thank you! I gotta go, I gotta poop.
Take smoke, I'ma poke a hole through you, choking's overdue. Come at me and you won't get any older, dude. Crack your holder too. Heating up inside of me, blood so violently. Thanks for trying me. Now it's finally time to see how this rivalry becomes a dynasty.